There's a kind of peace that can't be taken away. Not by bad news. Not by lost opportunities. Not by the shifting winds of fortune or the unpredictable nature of life itself. It's the kind of peace that is built, not found. Forged in thought, in struggle, in inner silence. It doesn't shout. It doesn't rush. It simply stands there, unshaken, in the middle of the storm. And that kind of peace, real peace, is exactly what Stoicism offers. But let's be clear, Stoicism isn't some outdated philosophy scribbled in dusty books by long-dead Romans and Greeks. It's a manual for life. It's a compass for navigating modern chaos with ancient wisdom. It's not about suppressing emotions but understanding them. Not about withdrawing from life but showing up for it, fully, deliberately, with courage. This video will explore 10 timeless Stoic principles that can help you find serenity, strength, and clarity in today's hectic, overstimulated, and often overwhelming world. These are not passive ideas. They are active practices, tools, anchors. They're for anyone who feels like they're being pulled in every direction. For anyone who's ever asked, how do I stay calm when everything is falling apart? And we begin with the foundation of it all, purpose. Without purpose, life feels like drifting. You go through the motions, checking boxes, meeting deadlines, achieving goals that someone else set for you. But you're not fulfilled. You're not centered. You're chasing something, but you're not even sure what it is. The Stoics were clear. You must live according to nature. And for humans, that means living in alignment with reason, with virtue, with your own essential nature. Purpose isn't just what you do. It's why you are. It's the inner orientation that gives direction to your thoughts, your actions, your struggles. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." You suffer more when you don't know what you're suffering for. A clear purpose transforms pain into fuel. It turns effort into meaning. The storm doesn't stop, but you stop being lost in it. So ask yourself not just once but every day, what am I here for? Not what the world expects of me. Not what brings the most comfort or praise or recognition. But what brings the deepest sense of alignment. What makes me feel like I'm right where I'm meant to be, even if it's difficult. Because when you're rooted in purpose, the noise fades. The confusion dissolves. The chaos may still be there, but it doesn't reach your core. Now, from that solid ground, let's move to another fundamental Stoic truth. You can't control what happens to you. But you can always control how you respond. It sounds simple, even cliché. But sit with it for a moment. You don't control the traffic, the weather, the decisions of others. You don't control illness, death, economic shifts, or random misfortune. You don't even control whether someone understands you, respects you, or loves you. And yet, we spend so much time trying to. Worrying about things we can't change. Arguing with reality. Reacting emotionally to events that are utterly beyond our influence. The Stoics had a word for this. Dichotomy of control. Epictetus said, "Some things are up to us and some are not." It's that simple. And your peace begins the moment you accept it. You can't stop a wave, but you can learn how to surf it. You can't silence the wind, but you can adjust your sails. Every moment becomes a choice. Every challenge, a test of your inner freedom. And this doesn't mean apathy. It doesn't mean resignation. It means power. Because when you stop wasting energy on what's out of your hands, you suddenly have energy to master what is in your hands, your thoughts, your actions, your perspective. That brings us to emotional mastery. Let's be honest, we've all been hijacked by emotion. Anger flares. Fear paralyzes. Envy poisons. Sadness lingers longer than we want. And yet, in Stoicism, emotions are not the enemy. They're signals, clues, indicators of how you're interpreting the world. Seneca said, "We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more in imagination than in reality." The goal of Stoicism isn't to suppress your emotions, but to put them in context. To step back, observe, reflect, and ask, is this emotion serving me? Is it based on facts, or stories I'm telling myself? You have the right to feel. You have the capacity to understand. And you have the power to choose your response. In a way, Stoicism is about creating distance. Not coldness, but clarity. Between the stimulus and the response, there is a space. And in that space, the Stoic steps in, not to react automatically but to act wisely. It's in that space that mindfulness lives. Yes, Stoics were mindful long before it became a buzzword. To be mindful is to be awake to this moment. To observe your thoughts without being controlled by them. To watch your emotions rise and fall like waves on the ocean, without being swept away. When you're mindful, you don't just live, you notice that you're alive. You become the witness of your experience, not the prisoner of it. Think about how often we live unconsciously. Scrolling, consuming, repeating patterns, defending habits. Mindfulness breaks that cycle. It gives you a pause button in a world that demands constant reaction. And through that pause you return to yourself. You realize that the real battle isn't out there, it's in here. In the mind. In how you interpret events. In whether you align your choices with your principles, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Because hardship is a given. The Stoics never promised ease. In fact, they prepared for adversity. They visualized it. They welcomed it as a training ground. They knew that comfort softens but challenge sharpens. That virtue isn't proven when things are easy, but when they're brutally difficult. Epictetus was born a slave. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire during plagues and wars. Seneca was exiled and ultimately ordered to take his own life. They lived it. And through it all they taught, you are stronger than you think. Not in the motivational sense, but in the deeper sense, that your mind, trained properly, can withstand anything. That every obstacle contains the seeds of growth. That meaning is not given to you, you create it, through your response to what life brings. And meaning matters. Because in a world full of noise, distraction, and superficial pursuits, meaning is the only thing that holds. It's what you cling to when success fades, when health falters, when relationships end. It's the reason you keep showing up, keep choosing integrity, keep choosing purpose, when it would be easier not to. Meaning isn't something you stumble upon. It's something you build, thought by thought, action by action, day by day. And when you build it, you become unshakable. You don't have to fear the chaos. You don't have to fear uncertainty. Because you've planted your roots in something deeper, something real. That's what Stoicism offers. Not an escape from life, but a deeper embrace of it. But for now, ask yourself, am I living with purpose? Am I choosing my response, or being dragged by it? Am I ready to build peace that no one can take from me? If the answer is yes, then you're already walking the Stoic path. And that is where the transformation begins. If the first step on the Stoic path is to anchor yourself in purpose, the second is to learn how to protect your peace, not by shielding yourself from the world but by transforming the way you engage with it. The Stoics were not escapists. They didn't retreat from society or from the challenges of being human. They stepped into life, fully, but with a different kind of armor. One not made of metal but of mindset. Not hardened by ego but softened by wisdom. Let's begin this chapter by revisiting a question that haunts so many of us quietly, in the corners of our mind. What do I do with all these emotions? The noise, the tension, the disappointment, the jealousy, the anxiety that creeps in when you're trying to sleep, the restlessness that shadows even your happiest moments. And the Stoics would ask, what are emotions really? They're not the problem. They're messengers. They are not enemies to be conquered. They are teachers to be listened to, just not blindly obeyed. When we feel something strongly, that's a signal. A flare from the depths of the mind telling us, something matters here. Something needs attention. But attention doesn't mean indulgence. That's where modern misunderstanding often creeps in. The idea that to be emotionally healthy, we must express every feeling, act on every impulse, give voice to every thought. The Stoics disagree. They say, observe, reflect, then choose. You are not your emotions. You are the space that notices them. Picture yourself sitting on a riverbank. Emotions are the water rushing by. Fast, turbulent, seductive. They pull at you, invite you to jump in. But you're the observer. You can acknowledge the river without drowning in it. Seneca said, a wise man is indifferent to everything which he cannot control. This doesn't mean apathy. It means discernment. Choosing which emotions deserve your energy. Which stories are worth believing. Which battles are worth entering. Take anger, for example. Anger feels powerful. It gives the illusion of control. But often it's the opposite. Anger is loss of control disguised as strength. The Stoic doesn't deny anger. They trace it to its root, expectation, entitlement, ego. And they ask, is this anger helping me live according to my values? Or is it simply hijacking me? The same with fear. Fear is ancient. It once kept us alive. Now it often keeps us small. The Stoic meets fear not with denial but with exposure. Fear of loss? Practice imagining it. Fear of rejection? Practice standing tall in its presence. Fear loses power when you shine the light of reason on it. And joy, yes, even joy, is not to be clung to. Because joy is beautiful precisely because it's fleeting. The Stoic feels joy deeply but holds it lightly. Gratitude without possession. presence without craving. That's the balance. This emotional fluency, this awareness, requires practice. And that's where mindfulness returns not as a buzzword but as a muscle. Marcus Aurelius, in his personal meditations, wrote as if coaching himself every day, reminding himself of mortality, of impermanence, of the higher goal beyond ego. That's mindfulness in its purest form, mental rehearsal of virtue. He didn't wait for peace to find him. He created it through deliberate thought. And one of the most powerful tools in that creation is what modern psychology now calls cognitive reframing, but what the Stoics have always called philosophical reflection. Life doesn't happen to you. Life happens, then you interpret it. You lose a job. Is that failure or redirection? You get criticized. Is that humiliation or free insight into your blind spots? You're rejected. Is that proof of inadequacy or clarity about who values you? The event is the same. The meaning is yours to choose. Epictetus said it with precision. Men are disturbed not by things, but by the view they take of them. This isn't just theory. It's freedom. Because if you can choose your interpretation, you reclaim power in any situation. But power without purpose becomes tyranny of the self. And that's why Stoicism insists on virtue. Virtue isn't some lofty, moralistic ideal. It's the core of who you want to be. It's the alignment between what you believe and what you do. It's honesty when lying is easier. Courage when silence is safer. Patience when you're boiling inside. Virtue doesn't always feel good in the moment, but it feels right at the soul level. And when you start living that way, when your actions mirror your principles, you stop being at war with yourself. Inner conflict fades. The noise quiets. You trust yourself again. And that trust? It's the foundation of resilience. Because when life shakes you, and it will, it's not your resume or your followers or your possessions that will carry you through. It's your character. It's your ability to remain anchored when the world goes sideways. Let's talk about one of the most powerful expressions of that character, receiving feedback. Now this is a hard one, because feedback threatens the ego. It pokes at our insecurities. It makes us defensive, especially when it's unsolicited, especially when it's blunt. But feedback, when received well, is a gift disguised as discomfort. The Stoic listens, not because every criticism is true, but because every criticism reveals something. Sometimes it reveals a blind spot. Sometimes it reveals more about the critic than the criticized. But always it reveals an opportunity. Seneca again reminds us, he who cannot endure criticism is too weak to be praised. So next time you feel attacked, pause. Ask, is there truth here even if it's uncomfortable? Is there something I can learn, refine, improve? This doesn't mean you take in every opinion. Discernment still matters. But if you shut out all feedback, you shut out growth. Growth, after all, is the essence of Stoic living. Not perfection. Not performance. But steady, intentional growth. And here's the irony. The Stoics, for all their talk of self-control and rationality, were deeply forgiving. Because they knew we are all fallible. We all fall short. We all mess up. Marcus Aurelius would begin each day reminding himself that he would meet selfish, angry, irrational people. And he would not let them disturb his peace. Why? Because they are human. And so is he. That's not detachment. That's compassion. And it leads us to a deeper Stoic principle, one often misunderstood: forgiveness. To forgive is not to condone. To forgive is to release yourself from the chains of resentment. It's not for them. It's for you. Carrying anger is like drinking poison and expecting someone else to suffer. To live in peace, you must release what was never yours to carry forever. You must let go, not because they deserve it, but because you do. And that, finally, brings us to the Stoic sense of living in harmony with nature. What does that mean in today's world? It means recognizing that you are not separate from the world, you are a part of it. You are not the center of the universe, but you are a thread in its intricate, intelligent fabric. Living according to nature means aligning with reality, not fighting it. Accepting change. Accepting death. Accepting impermanence. And finding your place, not above others, not beneath them, but with them. It's humility without helplessness. It's presence without passivity. It's remembering that your time here is short, but significant. So what do you do with that time? You live fully. You speak truthfully. You love fiercely. You forgive freely. You act deliberately. And in doing so you find peace. Not because life became easier, but because you became wiser. But for now, return to the questions that shape the Stoic path. Am I choosing peace over control? Am I reacting or responding? Am I living as a part of nature or in opposition to it? If you're asking, then you're evolving. And the path continues. At some point on the path of Stoicism, something shifts. You stop asking, how do I avoid suffering? And begin asking, how can I use suffering to grow? This is the subtle but powerful evolution of a Stoic mind. It's no longer about escaping discomfort, but about welcoming it as a companion on the journey to strength. You begin to see that adversity doesn't ruin you, reveals you. It doesn't block the path. It is the path. Let's talk now about discomfort. Not the kind that's simply annoying, but the kind that makes you question your worth. The discomfort of rejection, of uncertainty, of failure. The discomfort of facing yourself. Most people avoid it. They seek comfort as the highest good. But the Stoic sees comfort as a trap. Because when you're always seeking comfort, you start shrinking. Your world narrows. Your tolerance lowers. You become fragile. And fragility is not the natural state of the soul. The Stoic soul is anti-fragile. It gets stronger when challenged, wiser when tested, calmer when surrounded by chaos. By embracing a principle so counterintuitive that most never consider it, voluntary discomfort. It's one of the core teachings of Epictetus and Seneca. Wear simple clothes even when you can afford better. Eat plain food even when delicacies are available. Sleep on the floor once in a while. Walk instead of driving. Give things up temporarily. Why? Because when you choose discomfort, you loosen the grip that fear has on you. You stop being ruled by what you think you need. You realize that you're more adaptable than you believed. And you discover an inner stability that no external loss can threaten. Seneca put it this way, set aside a certain number of days, during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, while asking yourself all the while, is this the condition that I feared? That's the Stoic strategy. Practice suffering in small doses, voluntarily, so that when life delivers it involuntarily, you are not caught off guard. You've already walked through that fire. You know you're not made of paper. And from this resilience, another principle is born. Memento mori, remember that you will die. To the untrained ear that sounds dark, morbid, even depressive. But to the Stoic this is the most liberating reminder. Because death, far from being an enemy, is the great clarifier. When you remember that life is short, suddenly your priorities sharpen. The petty arguments fade. The superficial goals lose their shine. You stop postponing what truly matters. You begin to ask, if I knew today was my last, would I still do what I'm about to do? Would I still hold this grudge? Still scroll past the moment I'm living in? Still wait for a future that's never guaranteed? Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think. This isn't about panic. It's about precision. Precision of focus. Precision of effort. Precision of love. Because what makes life meaningful is not its length, but its depth. And death, when remembered, deepens everything. Your conversations become richer. Your solitude becomes sacred. Your actions become intentional. You stop sleepwalking. You wake up, not just in the morning but to life itself. And when you're awake in that way, another principle begins to form. The habit of meaning. You stop waiting for meaning to appear. You start creating it, moment by moment. You find it in washing the dishes if done with presence. You find it in a difficult conversation if done with honesty. You find it in silence, in listening, in showing up fully for someone who needs you. Meaning isn't a destination. It's a direction. It's how you walk, not where you end up. And the Stoics walked with meaning because they moved with intent. Everything was a chance to practice a virtue. You're stuck in traffic? Patience. You're misunderstood? Humility. You're exhausted? Fortitude. You're tempted to lie? Integrity. Every scenario becomes training. Every hardship becomes a teacher. And through that lens you start to realize something profound. You don't need a perfect life to live with peace. You just need a clear philosophy. That philosophy doesn't erase pain. It doesn't stop chaos. But it gives you a place to stand when the winds rise. A stillness inside. A compass. A reason. Now, with that in mind, let's reflect on how we build such a philosophy into the rhythm of daily life. The Stoics weren't just thinkers. They were practitioners. They didn't lecture others more than they lectured themselves. Marcus Aurelius journaled almost daily, not to impress, but to realign. Seneca wrote letters to friends that became meditations. Epictetus spoke like a coach, guiding the soul back to reason. Their lives were filled with reminders, triggers for virtue, rituals of reflection. And you can build that too. Start small. A few minutes in the morning. What kind of person do I want to be today? What challenges might I face? And how do I plan to respond? A few moments before sleep. Where did I fall short? Where did I act with integrity? What can I improve tomorrow? These are not chores. They are soul maintenance. And over time they change you. You stop being reactive. You stop being at the mercy of moods, news, gossip. You return again and again to your center. And from that center you meet the world, not with a shield of anger or a mask of perfection, but with steady presence. That presence is what people around you feel, even if they can't name it. They'll sense that you don't need to prove yourself, that you're not shaken by opinion, that you're not addicted to approval. And in a world full of noise, that silence becomes magnetic. But don't mistake stoic calm for coldness. This is a philosophy of deep compassion. Not the sentimental kind, but the kind that stays with someone in their suffering, not to fix them but to remind them they are not alone. The Stoic doesn't avoid emotion, they hold space for it. With others, and with themselves. They can grieve without despair. They can love without attachment. They can feel without being ruled. That's real power. And it's available to anyone, today. Not someday in the future. Not when everything's perfect. But now. If you're breathing, you can begin. By noticing your thoughts. By examining your reactions. By aligning your actions. And little by little, peace grows. Not loud. Not flashy. But unshakable. You won't always feel it. You'll fall. You'll forget. You'll get pulled back into ego and to fear. But the path will still be there, waiting. And each time you return stronger. This is the Stoic way. Not a destination. A direction. Not a performance. A practice. Not a life without chaos, but a soul unmoved by it. And you, right now, are walking it. You've read this far because something in you is ready, not just to understand peace but to become it. Because that, perhaps more than anything, is where true peace begins. Imagine for a moment that you're holding a rope. On the other end of that rope is a horse. Wild, agitated, constantly pulling, jerking, reacting to every noise, every movement around it. That horse is your emotion. That rope is your attention. Now you have two choices. You can grip tighter, try to control the horse's every movement, waste your strength on its chaos, or you can loosen the rope, give the horse some space to settle, and observe it with calm awareness. This is what the Stoics understood about emotional control. You don't suppress the emotion. You don't fight it with force. You observe it. You allow it. But most importantly, you refuse to become it. Because emotions are natural. But identifying with them? That's where suffering begins. Anger comes, you don't need to say, I am angry. You say instead, there is anger here. Sadness comes, you don't become it. You witness it. Anxiety rises, you don't collapse into it. You breathe through it. This mental separation, this space, is where the Stoic finds their superpower. It's what Viktor Frankl, a modern Stoic in every way, described as the final human freedom. Between stimulus and response there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. The world will keep pulling that rope. Life will continue to throw storms. But when you train yourself not to jerk with every tug, something amazing happens. You stop being reactive. You start being intentional. And suddenly you are no longer a prisoner of your environment. You become the architect of your inner world. And this power, this ability to choose your response, gives birth to another core Stoic principle. Only focus on what's within your control. Think of how much energy is wasted on things we can't change. The opinions of strangers. The decisions of governments. The traffic. The weather. Even the past. We replay conversations, agonize over rejections, dwell on hypotheticals, as if all that thinking will somehow alter reality. It won't. Epictetus was clear. Some things are up to us and some things are not. That's the first line of his Enchiridion, and it's the foundation of the entire philosophy. You don't control events. You control your judgment about them. You don't control what others say. You control what you choose to believe. You don't control what happens. You control what you do about what happens. And here's the paradox. The more you focus on what's within your control, the more powerful you feel. The more you fixate on what's outside your control, the more helpless you become. This is not denial. It's not avoidance. It's wisdom. Because when you free yourself from trying to control the uncontrollable, you reclaim energy you can now use to change what can be changed. Your thoughts, your habits, your reactions, your decisions. This is where real freedom lives, not in changing the world but in mastering the only world you'll ever truly own, the one inside your mind. Now consider what happens when you apply this principle to criticism, to feedback from others. Most people either resist it, defend against it, or absorb it completely and let it define their worth. The Stoic path is different. You learn to receive feedback, even harsh criticism, with poise. You pause. You ask, is there truth here? Even a little? If yes, you thank it. If no, you release it. No drama. No wounded ego. Just quiet discernment. Marcus Aurelius said, if anyone can refute me, show me I'm making a mistake or looking at things from the wrong perspective, I'll gladly change. It's the truth I'm after, and the truth never harmed anyone. This is what courage looks like, not in battle but in introspection. The courage to be wrong. The courage to grow. The courage to listen. When you stop being afraid of feedback, you become unstoppable. Because no attack can break you, only shape you. No judgment can shrink you, only sharpen you. You become like a rock in a storm, hit by the wind, shaped by the waves but never moved by them. And from this stillness emerges yet another Stoic principle. Practice mindfulness and meditation. Now, the Stoics didn't sit cross-legged and chant in caves, but they practiced mindfulness in the most practical, grounded way, by noticing their thoughts. Marcus Aurelius used his journal like a mental mirror. He wrote not to publish but to clear the fog. Epictetus constantly reminded his students, examine your impressions. That is Stoic mindfulness, not the absence of thought but the observation of thought. To watch the stream of your mind and choose which thoughts to follow and which to release. And this is something you can do anytime, not just in silence but in conversation, in movement, in work. You can bring mindfulness into how you walk, how you speak, how you listen. Into how you eat, how you drive, how you open your phone. Each moment becomes an opportunity to return, to stillness, to center, to clarity. You begin to notice. I was about to complain, do I need to? I was about to argue, is this useful? I was about to judge, where is that coming from? That pause, that brief awareness, becomes a superpower. And the more you train it, the more powerful it becomes. Your life becomes less chaotic not because the world changed but because you did. Now, from this deepened awareness, another powerful principle emerges: forgiveness. Forgiveness is not a Stoic weakness. It is a Stoic strength. Because what is forgiveness really? It is the release of anger. The refusal to drink poison and expect someone else to suffer. It is the decision to no longer be controlled by what hurt you. Seneca said, the best revenge is not to be like your enemy. When someone wrongs you, the ego wants revenge. But the soul, the Stoic soul, wants liberation. And you cannot be free while dragging chains of resentment. Forgiveness isn't about excusing behavior. It's about choosing peace over punishment. It's not about letting someone else off the hook. It's about letting yourself off the hook, of hatred, of bitterness, of mental prison. And often the hardest person to forgive is yourself. The Stoic path is not perfect. You will fail. You will regress. You will act out of fear and ego. But that doesn't mean you give up. It means you return, again and again, with gentleness, with honesty, with resolve. Because this is the ultimate Stoic commitment. Not to be flawless, but to be faithful to the path. To rise again when you fall. To reflect when you err. To forgive when you falter. And through that process you are forged, not into someone invincible but into someone immovable. Someone who walks through the chaos of the world and carries peace within. Not because life is easy, but because they have chosen their response. And in that choice, made again and again in every small moment, they build the unshakable life. There is a moment that comes, not in the chaos, not in the struggle, not even in the learning, but after. Quietly. Unexpectedly. A moment when you look back on all the battles you fought, the ones inside your mind and the ones that touched your heart, and you no longer flinch. You don't feel pride, not exactly. And you don't feel regret either. You feel clarity. You begin to understand. Peace doesn't come from avoiding pain. It comes from transforming through it. It doesn't mean life is calm. It means you are. And from this still, solid place, we arrive at the final Stoic principle. Live in harmony with nature. Now this doesn't mean hugging trees or meditating under waterfalls, although you certainly could. What it really means is this: accept the natural order of life. Flow with it, don't resist it. See yourself not as separate from the universe, but a thread within its grand fabric. You are not the storm. You are not the chaos. You are not the whirlwind of demands and emotions. You are a part of something greater. Something rhythmic. Something timeless. Marcus Aurelius said, adapt yourself to the life you have been given, and truly love the people with whom destiny has surrounded you. This is not passive surrender. This is active alignment. The Stoics taught that the universe is not random. It is ordered, rational, governed by logos, the deep, divine logic that flows through everything. And your task as a conscious being is not to fight this current. It is to align with it. This means embracing impermanence, letting go of what you cannot keep. It means accepting death, not with dread but with readiness. It means choosing virtue, because in a world you can't control, character is your compass. When you live this way, peace follows you like a shadow. Not because everything is easy, but because everything fits. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And you begin to ask, what is this calling forth in me? You stop wrestling with what is, and you begin to work with it. You begin to trust, not in outcomes but in your ability to meet whatever comes. And in that trust, your inner world softens. The clenching of control relaxes. You stand not in resistance but in resonance. You become like water, clear, steady, able to take the shape of any container but always retaining your essence. This is what the Stoics called eudaimonia, not fleeting happiness but deep fulfillment. The kind that arises when you live in accordance with your nature, with reason, with virtue, with acceptance. And it brings us back, full circle, to the very first principle we touched. Have a clear purpose. Because when your life is aimed at something noble, when your energy is aligned with your values, when your day is guided by something bigger than impulse or comfort, then everything begins to integrate. Your actions feel meaningful. Your challenges feel worthy. Your suffering gains direction. And from this foundation, the other principles fall naturally into place. You control your emotions not to suppress them but to serve your purpose. You embrace difficulty not to suffer but to grow into your purpose. You receive feedback not to please others but to sharpen your purpose. You practice mindfulness to stay aligned with your purpose. You forgive to protect your purpose from corrosion. You live naturally to express your purpose fully in the world. Each principle feeds the others. Each becomes not a rule but a rhythm, the heartbeat of a life well lived. So what now? You could walk away with a few quotes. You could save this video and forget it in a folder. You could begin. You could take just one principle, whichever spoke to you the most, and carry it with you tomorrow. In traffic, in conversation, in conflict, in solitude. And you could test it. You could ask, what would a Stoic do here? You could ask, what part of this is in my control? You could ask, what's the most virtuous response I can choose right now? Not because you're trying to be perfect, but because you're trying to be free. You could journal at the end of the day. You could reflect like Marcus. You could train your mind like Epictetus trained his students. You could walk through hardship like Seneca, calmly, courageously. You could stop trying to bend the world. And you could begin to master the only thing that ever truly mattered. Yourself. That is Stoicism. Not a rigid code but a living practice. Not a shield from pain but a sword to walk through it. Not a set of rules but a return to who you were meant to be. So breathe. Step forward. And let peace be your path, not your prize. Because peace was never outside. It was always inside, waiting for you to remember.